Welcome, everyone. It's 3 o'clock on the dot, but we're going to give it a couple of minutes for more folks to join, and we'll start soon. Thank you. Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NINDS Hill Pain Therapeutics Development Program webinar. We will start off with a presentation of slides, followed by the questions and answers. Please submit your questions in the Q&A section featured below, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation by our Program Director, Marianne Polymonter, and Scientific Program Manager, Matthew Rice. The presentation will be recorded and will be placed on our YouTube pages in the upcoming days. I'll be sending that link out along with the presentation slides to everyone that has registered. We are expecting a large crowd, so we ask that you please keep your videos off and remain muted for the duration of the presentation. And I will now turn over to our presenter for today, Dr. Matthew Rice.
Thank you, Rakonda. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this overview of the Heal Pain Therapeutics Development Program, or PTDP, on a late Friday. It is much appreciated. So as Rakonda said, this program is led by Dr. Marianne Polymonter. I'm Dr. Matthew Rice. I'll be presenting today. I'm a Scientific Program Manager, SPM, in the PTDP. And we really want this presentation to be as informative as possible, so please do submit any questions that you have, and we will take those at the end of the presentation. So first of all, to put things in a broad context, is that the PTDP is a 5-year program that's designed to take novel, non-opioid, non-addictive analgesics from discovery or development into phase 1 clinical trials. And by no means is NINDS the only IC that's involved in this. You can see in the lower left that we have quite a number of participating NIH institutes and offices. And the PTDP itself doesn't exist in a vacuum within the HEAL initiative. What you see on the screen is some of the more closely related programs. It is by no means a comprehensive list. But particularly as we're going through the nuts and bolts of the PTDP, if you find yourself thinking, well, perhaps my therapeutic candidate doesn't quite have the data package yet for an application into the PTDP, you may want to consider one of the programs that are a little bit earlier in the discovery stage, such as studies to enable analgesic discovery, or programs offered by NCATS or through PSPP. And in particular, PSPP, we also use this as a complementary program that sometimes runs alongside the PTDP that some of our PIs use in conjunction. And I'll talk about it in a bit more detail. But also with PTDP, as I mentioned, we take it to phase 1 clinical trials, but no further. So if you do make it all the way through the program and have a successful phase 1, there is the possibility of staying within the HIL program by applying to EPPIC-Net, which handles phase 2 clinical trials within the HIL initiative. So one program we work alongside with quite commonly is the preclinical screening platform for pain, or the PSPP. This is a program that's designed to take biologics, small molecules, natural products, or devices, and put it through a rigorous preclinical evaluation that consists of in vitro abuse liability testing, pharmacokinetics, side effect profiling, in vivo efficacy, and in vivo abuse liability testing. Importantly, the service, if you're accepted into the program, is provided at no cost to the participant, and participant IP and confidentiality are protected. And the PSPP is open to academic, industry, and government asset owners. And if you have any further questions about the PSPP, I would recommend you reach out to the program director, Dr. Smriti Iyengar, and her email address is found at the bottom of the screen. So the PTDP itself, as I mentioned, it's a program that is designed to take a therapeutic candidate from either discovery or development stage into phase 1 clinical trials. We support small molecules, biologics, and combination products. We do not support devices. That is, however, that service is provided from a different program within the HEAL initiative. The PTDP is set up in what's been deemed a virtual pharma. It's a cooperative agreement. And the way that this cooperation manifests is through the lead development team, or the LDT. And this LDT consists of the principal investigator and their team, NIH-sponsored consultants. And these consultants have expertise, decades of pharmaceutical experience across a broad range of disciplines such as medicinal chemistry, PK, toxicology, CMC, and we'll be responsible for picking out the consultants that we feel like are most relevant to that stage of the project and making sure that the team gets the support it needs from the consultants. In addition, there's also NIH staff, such as your scientific program manager that will be on the call, but we also have subject matter experts within the NIH whose expertise is in the pain field at large, or perhaps specifically in vivo behavioral testing for pain. And we'll bring that to the table as well. So other services that we offer through the PTDP are NIH contracts. So some of the contracts that we do offer to help advance the program are medicinal chemistry, PK tox and data management, manufacturing formulation, and clinical trials. Importantly, for the applicant, it is the PI who is responsible for any bioactivity or efficacy studies, which you can see in the green block on the diagram on the right. Another important aspect to remember whenever you are applying is that it is at the choice of the PI whether they want to use the NIH contracts for the services for the activities that are provided, or if they prefer to do those activities themselves or subcontract that themselves. And as we'll go through the program, that will also influence particularly the budgeting aspect of the application. Along with that, we always want to make sure that the PI team's intellectual property is retained by the PI's institution. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the 2024 and 2025 receipt dates, with the next two being May 24th and September 24th of this year. So as I mentioned, we take in a range of modalities. So I believe this program was initiated in 2019. And in that time, we've had 17 projects enter the pipeline. 59% of those have been small molecule, 6% have been combination, 6% have been formulation, and 29% have been biologic. And we have projects that both have no FDA approval history, as indicated by the lit light bulb on the right, and those that do have an FDA approval history, but not for pain. And we're evaluating those drugs in a pain environment. So, features of the grant. So first and foremost, the goal of the PTDP is to accelerate the development of novel, non-opioid, non-addictive analgesics. The program itself is structured through a phased, milestone-driven cooperative agreement, and you'll be hearing a lot about the milestones throughout this presentation because they are incredibly important to the program. And we support the early therapeutic development process, including hit to lead op, biomarker optimization, PK/PD development, IND-enabling studies, and phase 1 clinical trials. The end goals of the program include fully characterizing the lead candidates, identifying target engagement biomarkers, seeking partnerships with outside entities, completing IND-enabling studies and filing the IND, completing the phase 1 trials, and getting you ready for the phase 2 clinical trials. But again, we do not conduct the phase 2 clinical trials within the program. So as I mentioned, applicants can enter at either the discovery phase, which here we're defining as exploratory, hit to lead op, or the development phase, primarily IND-enabling studies. The goal of the discovery stage would be to identify a lead candidate, and with development, the applicant will likely already have a lead candidate selected and will be taking them through the IND-enabling process and phase 1 trial. But importantly, no matter where you enter in discovery or development, the program is designed around a 5-year cycle. And this is a phase cycle where there's the UG3 phase, which is the preparatory phase, which can last for either 1 or 2 years. And then you have the execution phase, the UH3, which will last for the remainder of the 5 years. And when you apply, you must have activities and budget for both the UG3 and the UH3, so for the entire span of the 5-year project. And you must lay out a path to clinic via either grant or NIH contracts. So as far as eligible organizations, so we support academic institutions and small businesses and foreign components. Non-domestic foreign organizations are not eligible to apply. And if you want further detail about what exactly constitutes a foreign component, I would recommend that you look at the NOFO, which has a link to how the NIH defines that. So for entry criteria into the PTDP, if you're entering at discovery, we want a rigorous biological rationale for the intended approach. We want a promising small molecule or biologic starting point for optimization. And we want scientifically sound assays to optimize and test the agent. And oftentimes, as I mentioned, this is a milestone-driven program, so a lot of that will get incorporated into the milestones in the go, no-go decisions. If you enter in development, you've got a candidate therapeutic that is identified, you've got a strong data package linking modulation of therapeutic target, or of the therapeutic target by the candidate therapeutic. And you also have biological activity and admit properties of the candidates that are appropriate and clinically feasible. So again, this is a phased grant mechanism, a phased cooperative agreement. That first phase is the preparatory phase, the UG3, and again, this can last for either 1 or 2 years. And then at that point, at the end of the preparatory phase, there will be go, no-go decision that is made. If your project then transitions into the UH3 or execution phase, and again, this will be either 3 or 4 years, depending on how long your UG3 went for. In the UH3 phase, you will have annual go, no-go decision points. So activities that are usually a component of the UG3 phase include optimization using potency and efficacy screens, preliminary efficacy and toxicology studies, characterization and testing of in vitro ADME, and initial optimization and PD target engagement biomarkers. When you get to the execution phase, that is when we will further optimize the lead candidate based on the criteria on the left. We conduct in vivo PK and biodistribution. Though I will say, oftentimes we do some very preliminary in vivo PK within the UG3 phase. You may also do cell bank development and testing if that's applicable to your application. Formulation, manufacturing, non-GLP and GLP toxicology are components of the UH3 phase, as other IND enabling studies and IND filing and submission, as well as the phase 1 clinical testing. So basis for application withdrawal. So non-responsive activities. Within the PTDP, we do not accept applications for screening for initial hit identification, for basic research and studies of disease mechanism, for animal model development, for development of diagnostics and diagnostic devices, for clinical studies beyond phase 1 testing, or for projects that are opioid sparing or projects targeting the receptor. Again, as I pointed out, I believe on slide 2, there are some programs within the HEAL initiative that do support those. So again, if you feel that your project is not quite a fit for PTDP, but you're still interested in the HEAL initiative, I would recommend that you check out some of the other programs I mentioned previously. So basis for application withdrawal, incomplete applications. So if you're missing any of the following, your application will be considered incomplete. First and foremost, we've got the go, no-go milestones, and we'll go into a bit more detail of what we're looking for those in subsequent slides. We will want to see a target product profile or a TPP. We want activities for both UG3 and UH3 phases, so for the entire lifespan of the project. We also want a budget for both the UG3 and the UH3 phases for each year of the project. And we want an intellectual property plan attached. So, as I said previously, the PTDP uses a phased approach. So at the end of the UG3, you will have go, no-go decision time points that will be based on the progress that you've made in part against milestones. This will be an administrative review involving various committees. If you then transition, if you pass those go, no-go decision milestones and then transition into the UH3 phase, you will then have annual go, no-go decisions. The review of these decisions on whether to move forward or not will be based on successful achievement of the milestones, the overall and continued clinical feasibility of the therapeutic candidate, including biomarker work and considering data that may not have been captured in milestones. Any changes in the competitive landscape, changes in program priorities, and availability of funds. So milestones, again, this is incredibly important aspect of the PTDP. So milestones must be included in the grant application. They must be included for both the UG3 and UH3 phases. They need to be detailed. We want information on methods, assumptions, designs, data analysis plans. We need them to be quantitative. We need to have them tied to key objectives. We need to have at least one milestone per year, and I'll just say, given my experience, there are usually multiple milestones per year that that will ultimately end up being incorporated into the notice of grant award. You need to specify the timeline of each milestone. And importantly, I'll say, whenever we are developing the program, the project around the application, we will take into consideration, strong consideration, the milestones that are in the application. But ultimately, it will be the PI and the NIH working together that will decide the final set of milestones that will be incorporated into the notice of grant award. That will be what we look at when we perform our administrative reviews at the end of the UG3 phase and annually within the UH3 phase. So intellectual property expectations, so inventorship is determined by US patent law. The PTDP wants no stake in the IP. We want the PI's institution to have upfront IP agreements. One thing you'll have to do if you enter into the program is that you'll also have to set up IP agreements with any of the contractors that we bring on to that lead development team, the LDT. And all of this is because we do not want the IP to be encumbered. We do not want to expend the resources, the time, and the funds to develop a therapeutic candidate, only then to not be able to license it. So this IP protection is incredibly important and commonly gets integrated into the milestones as well. So please ensure that your application has separate budgets for each year, all 5 years, UG3 and UH3 phases. Be clear in a table about the activities that you plan on performing or that you plan to have subcontracted or subawarded yourself, and activities that you want the NIH to support. So again, thinking back to those NIH contractors, the MedChem, the PK talks, the clinical trials, etc. When you do your budgeting, make sure to, in the budget for your grant, include any contractors that you are handling the subaward for. Do not include any NIH contractors that you're planning to use in the budget. We also need to have a table for activities that describe the activity, the throughput, the source, and the advancement criteria. We have to have a target product profile. We need you to make sure that you address any IP. And as the PTDP program expects the applicant to go into phase 1 clinical trials at the end of the program, it is important that if you are planning to use NIH contractors for those clinical trials, please mark no to mark application clinical trial. If you are planning to either handle the clinical trials yourself or handle or contract those out, but you'll be the main one handling that contract or subawards, please mark delayed onset clinical trial on your application. Not doing so or doing this incorrectly could lead to a delay in funding. And importantly, something that is new, relatively new, is that you need to include a data sharing and management plan that complies with HIL guidelines and NIH data management and sharing policy. So some things to do. Read the NOFO very carefully. Do discuss your proposal with the NIH, particularly with Dr. Marianne Pellingmounter as the program director. Stick to the page limit. Go into the scientific premise. Be explicit about the quality of the data, how this leads you to your conclusions. Create a story around it. These grants, just like every other grant, is going to go through scientific review, and make sure that you extol the rigors of what you're proposing. So be upfront about any potential compounds. Discuss bias, randomization, the statistical plans, power analyses, so on and so forth. Just be very rigorous about what you are proposing. Some other things to do. Complete your required registration at least 6 to 8 weeks in advance of the receipt dates. Consider submitting your application early. Effectively, if you submit the application and it's found to be incomplete, this could give you the time that you need to correct and resubmit and still hit the same submission deadline, which I'll remind you is the next one is May 24th and then September 24th. Please do discuss your budget or any other questions you have with NIH staff, and particularly the program director, Dr. Marianne Pellingmounter, and talk with your own tech transfer group. And you need to plan for funding patents and licensing activities, as this is not supported by the UG3 UH3. Some things not to do. Please do not plan for this to be the sole source of funding for your lab or small business. This is milestone driven. There are go, no-go decision time points, and attrition is expected within the program. Do not forget to address the use of NIH contract resources. So again, the NIH contracts do not handle disease biology. That is the responsibility of the applicant, either directly or through their own subcontracts and subawards. Please do not include NIH contracts in the application budget, and do not reach out to NIH contractors for letters of support. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. What you see on screen now is contact information for the program director, Dr. Marian Pellymounter, as well as the director of small molecule, VP in small molecules, Dr. Chuck Simon, our operations coordinator, Riconda, who is on the line, as well as other IC representatives and scientific program managers such as myself. And on the very bottom is just a reminder of the receipt dates for 2024 and 2025. So with that, I will open it up to any questions. Riconda, I don't see anything in the chat. Have you received anything?
No, not yet, Matt. And just for those that have joined us later, please submit your questions in the chat feature below and we will answer them. Also, this is recorded and will be distributed next week. Thank you.
Yeah, so if I don't get any questions, I'm just going to assume that I explained that so well that there are just no questions to be had. But again, really, please don't hesitate to drop something in the chat. We want this to be as informative as possible. Now, here we go.
Okay, yep, let's see. Okay, the first one, for a therapeutic, can it be an opioid sparing combo drug?
No opioid sparing applications.
Okay, next one, do novel delivery vehicles also qualify?
As long as it's a combination product. So for example, I think right now the only combination product we have in the program is a drug-eluting contact lens. So if it's something to that effect, yes. If it's purely the device, then no, there's a different program for devices.
Matthew, I would just like to add to that. In the case, sometimes there are very, like original types of formulations that change everything in terms of administration. In that case, it would be okay to submit for that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Marianne.
Okay, the next one says email for pre-screening. I'm not sure.
So if you're talking about the one slide for the PSPP, that would be Smriti Yingar. If you search for PSPP NIH, you'll find the page and all of her contact information.
Okay, the next one, to clarify, using NIH contracts are provided outside the budget?
Yeah, so you do not include any NIH contracts in your budget. We will handle the budget on our end for NIH contractors.
Okay, next question. If I have target but not leading compounds, which program can I apply?
So there's currently a concept approved, and I'd have to look back at the name of it because it's been recently renamed. Marianne, do you know the name of that one right offhand?
Wait, which one? I didn't understand that question.
The one that's recently had so if I have target but not leading compounds, or do we have a program?
We don't. So it isn't quite, it isn't out on the street yet. That's the, I think, analgesia enablement program or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically be on the lookout for that one. That one's going to be, was it
2025? Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, what's next?
Next question, is it a budget limit?
Marianne, is there a budget limit?
No, there is not. So the budget just has to be well justified and match very closely your activities. Reviewers look at whether your budget is realistic on both on the end of whether it's too high or whether it's too low. So just make it realistic.
Okay, next question. If I have a platform type of biologic that has multiple uses, but as yet we have only performed a phase 1 in one indication. Can you support new activities in a new indication, one that has a higher regulatory bar?
So yeah, we can support a pain indication even for drugs that have already been FDA approved. For other indications, we have several drugs like that. We don't support, for example, just a phase 1 clinical trial. We do expect that to go through the program. So other examples would be that we wouldn't supply just manufacturing or just toxicology. It's kind of a whole package type of situation for the development.
Okay, next question. Can you speak to the treatment of chronic pain, example, back pain, being treated with nerve contracts to remove the painful nerves, thus relieving chronic pain? Would this technology be applicable?
Being treated with nerve contrast to remove painful nerves, thus relieving chronic pain.
Is that a device, I wonder?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a device, no.
Then no, yeah.
Okay, next one. Maybe you can clarify how to incorporate NIH subcontracts.
Into your application. So the PTDP also has a website that has the same information that's listed here, so you can see the contracts that and the activities that we provide. I mean, you would state what you want from the contracts, but you would not have to go into a great level of detail. Marianne, I feel like I'm missing the mark on that.
Yeah, I just like to add one thing about that topic. So if you intend to use NIH contracts, it's very important to provide a table in your application that describes each of the activities that you want funded and state who you intend to be responsible for those activities. For instance, you may want to do your own medicinal chemistry, so you'll list that as for your institution, but then you may want GLP toxicology, pharmacokinetics done by the NIH contracts, and it's important to indicate that in the table. The reviewers need to have a quick go-to place to understand what you intend to do in terms of contracts.
Okay, next question. There's a proposal related to the development of a new opioid formulation with the reduced addictive properties this grant.
No, this is for non-opioid.
Any contact info for NIH contracts components?
No. Yeah, okay, no. Yeah.
Because the PI, so as investigators, if they're NIH contracts, then NIH is the sponsor. So we don't allow you to contact them directly, at least if it's about this particular grant.
How is this different from STTR funding via Hill?
So if I'm not mistaken, STTR is just purely small business. So we also accept
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. So we do small business, but we also do academic as well. So it's just potentially a wider applicant pool.
Right. And it's a different application too. If you apply to something through the small business program, the SBIR or the STTR, there's some different requirements regarding foreign components, regarding the percentage of people that are actually in ownership of the business. So there are different requirements you have to meet in order to do that relative to this one.
Okay, if I ask NIH to do a clinical trial, what does the PI need to do?
So as far as the applicant, it would be similar to what Marianne said before about, you need to write it in such a way that that the scientific reviewers can review it for merit. I mean, the PI is still going to be a component of that lead development team, and we'll be putting together any kind of clinical trial plan together as an LDT.
All right. If I'm trying to reduce the inflammation from a painful condition like gout, which should theoretically reduce pain significantly, would that qualify?
Yeah, as long as it's non-opioid, non-addictive analgesic, you need to specify the condition you were looking for in your target product profile.
And I'd like to add another thing to that topic, because we've had that question before. If you are looking to do disease modification only, then that's probably not appropriate for this funding opportunity. If you want to look at something that will reduce inflammation and indirectly reduce pain, you just have to write the application so that the whole focus is on reducing pain. So your animal models need to be focused on pain reduction.
Okay. Does this program allow non-mu opioids, example Delta or Kappa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will U19 be reissued in the near future for HTS-SA development and validation?
I do not know the answer to that.
Actually, Rakonda, could you say that again?
Okay. Will U19 be reissued in the near future for HTS-SA development and validation?
Yeah, that's probably that's going to be renamed the analgesic enablement program. And so that's the one that would be reissued in 2025.
Okay. Sorry. I had another one. I guess it's migraine a valid application?
Yes, migraine is valid, correct, Marianne?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Any additional questions?
There's something else. If there's an IV formulation that works, but we plan to develop an oral version of the same drug, would that qualify?
Yeah, we do support reformulation, correct, Marianne?
Yeah, I think that would qualify, as long, because it sounds like you would have to probably do another lead optimization program to get that done. So that would be all right.
Can we ask NIH consultant to help us develop the target product profiling?
So you'll be responsible for putting together at least a draft target product profile. And I will say there are some very good resources that if you do a search for either NIH or FDA TPP pain, you'll find some very nice examples of what we're looking for in a target product profile. If you get accepted into the program, and when we bring the consultants on board, then yes, we'll all have, the entire LBT will have input on any changes on the TPP.
Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes. Okay. Looks like that's the end of the questions. Matt, anything else to add? Marianne? Oh, hold on, we have one more. Oh, what type of consultative help can you provide to develop an application?
So to developing an application, if you have specific questions, you're welcome to reach out, particularly to Marianne. Let me put her email back up there. But we don't offer any NIH consultant specifically for application preparation, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, often if you are, if you just need to have some general information or specific information, if you could just send me like a bullet pointed list of your specific aims, or even a list of the activities you're thinking about, and then we can help you go from there. We can't Obviously, we can't consult in writing the application, but we can help you understand how to fit the application.
Okay, what kind of biologics are you looking for?
So there's no particular biologic we are or are not looking for. So I mean, gene therapy, cellular therapies are the most common, but there's I don't believe there's any limit to what we're looking for.
All right, does failure to achieve goals on the milestone lead to termination, or is additional time possible?
So there's a lot of nuance to that answer, but those milestones are really treated as go no go decision time points, and attrition is expected in the program.
Okay. Gregory, those bullet points in developing an application, you should send that to Marianne Palamenter. Correct, Marianne? And her email is the first one on the page you're seeing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Couple more minutes for last minute questions.
The timer is on again.
Yeah. Okay. I think that might be it. If Matt, you have anything else to add?
No, I just thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for your questions and your interest in the program.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All right.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.